Hey guys, this is Josh with Trillium Wild Edibles, and in the first part of this video we discussed the good things about the Peterson Field Guide to Wild Edibles, and in the second part of the video we're going to go over the cons or the bad things about this field guide, and at the end of this video I'll go into why I still recommend this field guide. I hope you enjoy this part of the video, and stay tuned. Let's get into some of the cons about this book. First and foremost is, again, the very large geographical region. How can that be a bad thing? Well, someone like me, for example, who doesn't really travel, I don't travel to Florida very much, and I don't really have any intention into going to Canada, like, ever. So, no offense to Canada, it's just not a place I'm interested in. That being said, some of these plants that are in this book, I'm never going to run across. So I think that some of this space, for my intended purpose, I would want a more localized guide. Some of the space in this book could be better filled, I think. But the author was intending it to cover a large region. So that can be a con, so make sure you don't rely upon this one field guide. Another negative thing about this book is the very large number of plants covered. This large number of plants is good in a way, and it's also bad in a way. The reason it can be bad is because A, there's a lot of information to digest here. With all this information to digest, a lot of this information is outdated, which is another one of the negative things about this book. This book was written in the 70s, and it hasn't really had an update until I think in 2006 or 2007. And I have this version right here that you see is from the 70s. It's the old version. Now, because of that, like I said, you're going to find a lot of conflicting and outdated information. The large numbers of plants giving you so much information to digest that may be outdated makes a lot of this really hard to decipher what is outdated and what is not, or what is conflicting and what is not. And the more plants you have, the harder that makes it on someone who's just getting into foraging. So I think the large number of plants is a kind of a bad thing here. Another negative thing about this book is, as you notice, these line drawings. These are very, very accurate, but however they're extremely inaccurate in a lot of cases because they're not drawn in a way that looks like the plant as it's actually growing, i.e. they're not a colored photograph of the plant. They're just line drawings. Some of these, like the Solomon seal, that's actually how a Solomon seal looks while it grows. That's actually how wild oats grows. It looks almost just like that. But, however, the rootstock of Solomon seal, which you see here, does not really look so much like that. So again, that's something to keep in mind, is that these line drawings are best to be studied very thoroughly as you're looking at the plant itself and comparing it to the text here of the plant's description along with these line drawings. Don't rely upon these line drawings themselves. You want to be curious about what plants are around you and look at them and then compare those to these drawings. We've already covered it has quite a bit of outdated information. That's already been covered a little bit, and that's really important to keep in mind. With foraging or books on the subject, you want to make sure that you don't rely upon just one book. This book has an intended purpose, and it is very good for that one intended purpose. This book doesn't spend a lot of time on uses of the food, which can be very bad if that's what you're looking for. But this is a field guide. Milkweed, you see quite a bit of text here. Then right above it you see just not even a full sentence. Then here you see just a couple of sentences, and that's not really quite enough. I've also found that a lot of the food uses here are not quite entirely accurate. I found that there are ways that aren't listed in here to prepare some of these foods that I find are much more enjoyable than what they tell you in here. So that's something to keep in mind too. So once you find something, try to experiment just a little bit. The last thing I want to cover here is that there are a lot of very important and popular wild edible plants that are missing from this book. Garlic mustard is the one I'm going to mention because it is one of the most popular wild edibles out there. You almost can't research the subject without finding or hearing about garlic mustard. And for some reason, it's not in this book. All the other mustards are, but garlic mustard is not. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, you can't rely upon this one book. So with all of those things being said, why on earth would anybody even want to use an old, outdated field guide? Why would somebody still carry it? Well, the reason I still carry this field guide, and I do still religiously carry this field guide, is because of its intended purpose. And that is why I highly recommend this book, is for its intended purpose, which is identification only. I don't really pay much attention to the descriptive text here on the food use. I do pay a lot of attention to the plant's description because I've often found these to be very, very accurate, though they do sometimes miss variations in flower colors and hybrid species that may occur. And you'll notice sometimes in some areas it'll say several species to shown. And what that means is there's a whole lot more than what they're showing you here. So that, again, that's something to keep in mind. I only recommend this book for identification. That's it. I do pay somewhat a bit of attention to the poisonous sections of this book, where it talks about poisonous plants. Obviously I use this for identification of poisonous plants if needed, or where it talks about poisonous parts of plants. Again, that's something to keep in mind. It mentions here with Solomon seal, do not confuse with rootstocks of Mayapple or those of false Solomon seal. And there are good reasons for them telling you that. So some of the information in here is still correct and still legitimate and not outdated. But it is your job as a responsible forager to figure that out on your own and do your own research. So those are the reasons why I recommend this book, and those are the reasons why I also recommend you pay due diligence forward and do your own research. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it and found it very useful.